Oh, this is gonna be recorded? Oh,
Yeah.
wait a minute. I didn't know that. Is there a release form? No.
If you're awesome.
How is this gonna be used?
As a podcast.
Oh, perfect. Okay. Well, in that case, you have all the rights to use this for in perpetuity for any medium that you could possibly think of in the future.
You're awesome. I love that. But when you hit,
Just
that's another feature of Zoom. Most people don't know that, but this can go out before I introduce you. The agreeing to be recorded is the release form. So when you hit
right. So
agree,
I've already agreed anyways, right?
you've agreed.
But I
You've
didn't read
agreed.
it.
I know.
Oh, happy Wednesday, diary listeners. It was supposed to be Tuesday, but I had a tech issue, a hardware issue. One of my cords actually broke down, and it's what attaches my microphone to my computer. And whilst you would think that I should have extra of those, I didn't. Now I do. They were quickly shipped to me. It's the good, it's the bad, it's the Amazon got it to me. But I'm so happy that I can finally pour out this podcast for you, this diary entry. It's a 2-part entry with Gabe Ripley of Tattooed Now. We're calling the first part, What Can Be Given Can Be Taken Away. Enjoy, listeners. Welcome to the Apprenticeship Diaries, where raw meets refined.
Let's be real, we're still working on refining.
What it took, what it takes, and the stories that are made.
Join us as we learn from professionals about how their stories begin.
I mean, did you read it or?
No. It was just simply the whole you can't record people beyond their consent kind of thing. So
Yeah. My guess is that Zoom has the right to use this conversation for however Zoom wants to, in perpetuity, for all purposes.
probably, but we're pretty wacky people. I don't know if we'd raise any red flags for them. I'm not sure.
I have to go out of my way to not raise red flags.
Well, welcome to, I know, right? Well, I'm very grateful to have you on my show, The Apprenticeship Diaries, and just so everybody knows who I'm talking to, because this will mostly be audio. I'm trying to get to the video medium, and you have such a great setup that it's kind of a crime.
I was going to say, if we're going to go on, if we're not doing video, I might eventually I'll hop onto my headphones and take a, you know what? Oh, you already pressed record though. Okay, never mind.
Well, I might use the video, and I'd like to share the video with you as well. But I'm here with Gabe Ripley of Tattoo Now, and yeah, hey, and we've known each other for quite a time, man. I think it was before even Paradise that I met you at your shop Off the Map in, I think
Forever
it was
ago.
2010.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah, it was really cool.
Time flies. It's out of control.
It's really crazy. It's really, really crazy. But I've adored your family ever since then. I met your daughter and your wife. Cecilia came, and Kim was really like, "Oh no, don't interfere." And I was giving her paper to draw on because I love doing that. I don't know if you know, but I really love playing with kids like that. So as soon as she was into it, I was like, oh, this is so fun. So
that was great. And that first year of the show, they did seminars for the kids, there was actual workshops for the kids. So while the parents were off doing the workshops, the kids could be doing the workshops and kind of being part of the same experience. That was out of control.
I want to do it. Can we bring that back?
We are. Oh, absolutely. This year when I saw a bunch of the clients, Nick Baxter's clients, same clients from fucking 2008, right?
Yeah.
And but now he's back with his 4 kids.
Oh.
And I'm like, oh, it's amazing. And immediately I talked to Cecilia and I was like, next year, babysitting and kids classes again. And she was way down.
I'm down with doing something like that too. I would love to do that. Wow, that's so cool. And how cool would it be if I got to butt up with Cecilia and talk about that? Because that's so cool. She could probably help me a lot because
it'd be wicked fun. It's amazing. The next generation, It's just amazing, like how
Yeah.
fast everything's going, how fast everybody's brains are going. It's like technology is helping communication happen faster than like our brains have kind of evolved or our cultures evolved. It's nuts. It's crazy.
It really is. Well, and I wanted to touch with you because I knew you then, but I don't really know about you prior. Really, I know that you had created an amazing online portfolio space of Tattoo Now, and that kind of set off, I think, tattooing in a way that nobody had seen or even recognized before. I really think, because that was what brought me in. That's what brought my mentors into that space. They were like, this is the place to go and talk with artists that are pushing the boundaries of this medium. And I was like, oh, this is cool. And for me as an art kid, I was like, well, this is great because, it's a critique space. It's like a meeting space, portfolio, online space. So it was really, really, it was great, to say the least.
Agreed. It was fun. It's, obviously the impact everyone else has to figure out, I just have to keep working is all right. And the kind words, I accept them and I'm happy and I'm thankful for them. But, being in it, it's hard to tell it's not even fair to try to figure out the effect of things, right? But that said, it was one of the first 2 or 3 online resources for tattooing, and we definitely have a certain flavor. There was tattooartist.org and Tattoodles and tattoos.com and a bunch of others, but and in part because of my wife's influence and education. Education's always been a big part of what sets Tattoo Now or the work that I do or the people I work with apart. And the spot between technology and tattooing and education and tattooing, and technology, like all of that is, it's still pretty damn new, right? But in the mid '90s, again, it was definitely cutting new ground. I used to joke sometimes that we were like reality websites before there was reality TV, reality tattoo TV. So you would check in with Tattoo Now every day to see what the new stuff was going on. And the forum was rocking, right? I mean, we had that was my first experiment in radical free speech or unfiltered free speech. And I rode that for a while until I realized that there are absolutely limits to free speech, and there should be. And, while there's an important space for anonymity, as far as like whistleblowing is concerned, I found out not pretty quickly, but probably 8 years into that forum that if you're not going to attach your name to your harsh words, then there's a disconnect. So there'd be violent threats, anonymous threats, and it's just like, well, that's not cool. And,
that is a hard limit that people don't really understand, that's not okay to do regardless. And especially, like you said, if you're not going to be ballsy enough to put your name to it.
It gets crazy. No, that said, I had people show up at the shop and stuff too. So it's like they're,
oh man.
So again, mostly, but again, steering it back to like, so I guess what that is like, we were not trained on how to manage millions of personalities.
Well,
right?
I think it's valuable and that's why I really am excited to have you, because, my podcast is a baby venture, and I'm very dedicated to doing it slow and growing it slow, because I think the more that I do that, the more that I can take these hits as they come than going really fast, because, you have these really, and I think in tech world, it is a lot like that, because you open up this Pandora's box that you think it's going to be like so amazing. And then it catches like wildfire in ways that the human condition, like you said, you just are like, wow. And we know it. We know that more people, more problems. We know that we are capable of such crazy crap, but you just don't think that it's going to happen. And you just don't think it's going to happen to you.
Obviously, what the internet can giveth, the internet can taketh away, and and obviously you could do it in, and I didn't want to go here so quick. Let's go back in time when things were nice.
Yeah.
Because there was a shift in the tools, right? Like, and so we're like skipping forward to like, I don't know, 10 years ago when in the beginning, in the 90s, computers and the tools, we human beings use the computers as tools to do awesome things.
Yes.
And when the social media shift started happening, it's like all of a sudden we became the fucking tool. It's like or the tool started using us.
Yes.
And so there is a distinct shift, and if so it's really important to be in tune with when you're using technologies. Are you using technologies as a tool, or are you being delivered to the altar of attention, to be sacrificed, and all of a sudden you're doom scrolling forever? But so back in the but it was awesome in the I mean, it's still awesome, but in the mid 90s, when I started doing Tattoo Now, it was one of the first websites. Like, websites didn't really exist. I was programming computers. I was doing mostly touchscreen kiosks, Honda and Epcot Center and all that, and then I would come home and I'd work with my tattooer friends and my musician friends.
So that's where you worked prior, was Honda and Epcot and things like that?
That was like all freelance. That was like all freelancey stuff. So like I did contracts for Honda and Epcot Center. So there was, I was able, I took some of, I tried to think of myself a little bit as a Robin Hoodie type computer geek. Like, I'll take from the evil corporations and I'll deliver to my musician friends,
I like it.
Why are they, they're just as talented as these executives that I'm working around. Some of the musicians were more so, or the tattooers more so, but they were in the musicians. It's like, it sucks. It's like the economy and the economics of music is insanity. So for me, I'm like, why are these again, the corporate players who aren't really they're not that smart, or not that much smarter, doing so much better and in charge of these budgets, and the musicians are, slogging it out. So anyway, so that was, for a while there, I would do freelance gigs, and then, work for artists. And then eventually I, just dove in and started working with the artists, had less and less tolerance for, just selling, cars,
Well, you answered one of my first questions, which was, what was it about us that you wanted to partner with?
It's funny when I saw that question come over, my first, one of my first friends. Oh yeah, wicked weird. I mean, I'm not unweird. I grew up, in an awesome, beachside town, but I grew up, white trash, on Section 8, wasn't in the trailer park, but, hung out with everybody from the trailer park. And, the computer, it was weird. Like, my mom's boyfriend had a TRS 80? No, TI-99 4A. It was Texas Instruments, TI-99 4A.
Oh, wow.
We would plug it into the TV, and I have no idea how he got it. He's weird. Like, not in a good way, really.
Yeah.
But again, so like in the chaos of like that insanity, I would be able to get into the computer and I could type in, 10, print hello world, and then the computer would do that, right?
Yeah.
And then I could program out all the other games, and the games would come in magazines, so I'd flip through the magazines and I'd type out, and I basically programmed the games before I could play them.
Wow.
And it was probably like 10ish, 11ish when I started doing that. And then what really got me to your question about why did I start working with artists, when I went to Catholic school in 5th grade, and I would not recommend it to anybody. And if you send your kid to Catholic school, fuck you. Sorry, didn't mean to.
You're like, it was harsh.
They taught me that I was going to hell, right? So it's like, and for me, it gave me an inherent distrust of adults and large groups of people and my peers. But it was definitely rough to go through. But the main point was, like, I was definitely an outcast inside of, I was not a Catholic in a Catholic school. I showed up in 5th grade, so everyone else had been there forever. They knew each other. So I was like the weirdo that showed up late. And there was this one kid, John Paul, who had cystic fibrosis. And so he was also he was also, not normal. Right. And
yeah, he was suffering quite a bit.
It was rough, and my mom, I think my mom bought drugs from his father or something. But again, so it was like, he was an artist, right? So this kid John, he was sketching, he was drawing all the time. And it was really amazing that, knowing he had limited amount of time on the earth, he was still going for it, right? He was still drawing. And so he was probably he was the first artist that I started working with. And I remember having him draw out, sketches so that I could, I'd have to translate them into the computer as bitmaps. It was, really blocky graphics. But the point was, that was the first time that I'd work with an artist to use their art to put into the computer stuff.
That's so cool.
Yeah, it was rough. Like again, it was a weird, I had a weird upbringing, right? So when he died, my mom didn't even tell me about the funeral, right? So it was like all of a sudden on Monday, I go to school and the kids were like, "What the fuck were you? Why weren't you at John Paul's funeral?" I'm like, "That was this weekend." Like, what do you mean that was this weekend?
Oh
And,
no.
it was everything. Just again, it was whatever. I mean,
So,
life is weird, I suppose.
well, I want to highlight some few things. So I now kind of understand why I see you so well. First of all, my brother is a software engineer, so
Awesome.
I grew up with a little you.
Computer geeks.
I wouldn't recommend that either as an older sister. But I love my brother now. He's super dope. He's a really good guy, really good dad. And I do see that we share a very similar brain in a lot of ways. We just use the engineer brain in different facets. And one of my mom's favorite movies growing up was Alex, Life of a Child, about a kid that had cystic fibrosis. And
Okay.
she would watch it. And so I don't think very many people understand what that disease is and how fatal it is. And the fact that you grew up directly with somebody that you cared about a lot and he was a major influence, that's pretty incredible. And that's the thing about art and all of it, creation, is that it comes from I think all of it comes from a lot of pain, so like you have to, if you're going to survive it, you have to transform it. So
Sure.
yeah.
Well, one of the things, obviously losing friends early, and again, like I said, I got, again, it was a chaotic upbringing, so it just got weird quick. And but losing a friend in high school, right? It's he died when I was sophomore year in high school. I didn't really talk to him much for that last year either, and we had gone to different schools after Catholic school, and it's definitely like, I think now, I mean, I was 30 some odd, almost 40 years ago, right? And it's like all of that life that I've been able to experience, he hasn't, and
Yeah.
and obviously, and since then, there's been plenty of other, unfortunately, people have come and gone. And, I mean, ultimately, I think that for me, a lot of the motivation is, for my friends and that aren't here anymore, it's like, we have to live life for them. That's that's the only thing we've got.
Well, and it's definitely investing in the gratitude of it too. I've worked with a lot of people who have lost, God forbid, children, and I've always told them, I don't know if this is healing or if it feels okay. I don't have kids, so I don't know, but I do feel like, because I'm very spiritual, I do feel like that they're kind of beings that take on a sacred mission to kind of come in and invoke in us something that drives us beyond what we ever would have imagined before we met them, that they kind of came in knowing what they'd have to bear. And I think that they're kind of like little angels. Yeah, like the ones that pass early, that have to suffer like that.
That's nice. I have a much more naturalistic view of it.
I know, but I think they're meant to plant little seeds in our heart.
Well, and, I mean, I guess I wouldn't. I won't. Sorry, I won't deny that. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
This is about you, man.
Yeah, I mean, like certainly, like the magic and the wonder of life, is hopefully. I wouldn't say it's designed to make us acknowledge the miracle that we are actually alive, but it does. Certainly. My wife teaches infants, right? So she has a new set of nonverbal infants in her classroom, every year. So yeah, she gets to experience the magic of a human being, as their brains are, in the last trimester, the 3 months after birth is kind of like an extra trimester of development. The kids are basically developing after they got out of the womb. Our brains are too big.
Yeah, they are. They used to kill their mothers a lot. Like our heads were just too massive.
Sure. No, it's again, science and biology, it's phenomenal. I love it. And the fact that we get to understand or at least get to attempt to understand so much of it. Well, again, that's for me. It's like when the small amount of time that we have here, let's try to figure out as much as we can.
Yeah.
And and then the arts are obviously a method of communication, right? And so for me, of all of the different types of people that are communicating, that are working around in the world, to be able to help amplify, and ultimately that's what I do, is I'm an amplifier, to help amplify the creatives. It's a pretty sweet spot, right? Especially as a non-creative. Like, I don't do any art. I don't draw. I don't play music. I don't do creative writing. I probably could.
We'd be nothing without you.
But my skill set's different, right? I mean, as you know, when shit's hitting the fan and the world's going crazy, I'm like, why don't I just tattoo fucking hipster shit on people for $300 a pop, right? Like, that's really not. I mean, it's not super trivial or easy, but I probably do have the Guinness Book of World Records for having taken the most amount of tattoo seminars while never tattooing. It's like I probably logged fucking 50 or 60 different, 3-hour long tattoo.
You should contact seminars, them.
But I know, is there record?
I mean, for real, dude. But, that's a gap that I don't think the Guinness has really really even understood. You definitely should. But, and not just, any old tattoo seminars, because that is even getting, I feel like, more and more watered down as time goes on. Everybody's trying to sell their tattoo truths online and at mass. So, you do the seminars that I truly believe are the most impactful, though I don't want to take away from anybody else's hustle.
Some of the most impactful.
Yes, because they're in person and there's touch. And I feel like, I don't know, for me, the things that, the reason why I tattoo people is because I love people, and I like figuring out how to connect with people better. And like you said, it's a communication tool. So if I'm going to expose myself to a learning environment, I like the classroom. I like being tangibly there. I like touching things with other people. I like seeing it right then and there, and emotionally like feeling the room. Like, there's a different energy when you get to experience that.
Oh, 100%. I mean, I think that they did a recent study about the Zoom and about the different touches that when you communicate, there's sight, there's your facial expressions, there's your hand, there's how you hold yourself, there's how you smell, there's how many distractions there are in the room, when you're zooming. So say there's like 8, I don't know these, I'm paraphrasing. Say there was like somewhere between 7 and 9 different factors that went into the level of communication. Through the Zoom, there was like 2 or 3. Right. It's like, we could see you in this spot, you're flat, we can hear you, depending, Zoom's doing a great job. I was just saying, Zoom does a great job of filtering, but here's the thing, right? Zoom filters out all of the audio of the environment, but we will often use the environment as audio cues about what the hell's going on or where you're at. So, but the main point being is when you're in the room with like 20 people and there's real energy going in, there's all 9 of those pathways of information that are flowing through and sensory things going through. There is just more. It is richer.
Yes.
Now, that said, obviously I make my living or I try to make my living, using the computers to connect people. Right. Which gives us the ability to connect with people all around the world at a time when we couldn't have this conversation if it wasn't for the computers. We could, but we couldn't have it at our convenience.
Right.
And so for me, a lot of what I do, and even back in the day with Tattoo Nut, starting from the beginning, it's using the digital to attract people online to communicate and to kind of create this online digital introductions and relationships. But then really bringing everybody into person, right? So then, and it was like that in the very beginning with the tattoo. Like, so Darkside was the first website that I did. And this is in the mid 90s. And again, this is like websites came out and I was programming video games and touchscreen kiosks. And I was like, pictures and words, like, it's kind of neat that everybody could publish, but like, making video games and shit. I don't, I'm making, full screen videos, and you can't do that on the web. But I wanted to get better tattoos. Right. So I started trading out for tattoos for web work, and realized really quickly, it's like people see the pictures online and then read the words. Right. And so that's where like Baxter, like right from the very beginning, he had his like manifestos on his pictures. He's like, this is about animal rights and this is about, equality or whatever it was. And but people could just see the pictures and be like, oh, that's a fucking sick ass tattoo. And then they can read the words and be like, I identify with that.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden they're there in person. Right.
Yep.
And they've driven 2 or 3 hours to get a full sleeve about animal rights or whatever. And, or about Nick's interpretation of animal rights, even better. Right. But then you meet in person. Right. And so then all of a sudden, like, there's people that would come to the shop and they'd be like, oh, I saw that tattoo online, or I saw that. And really it's that dance, or that pass back and forth between the virtual world and then the real world. And then everybody sees you, especially like with the gatherings or with any sort of like, or a party at a shop, you see each other in real life. Then when you're connecting over the computer again, it's a whole new world, another level. And so maybe we only have our 3 points of senses, but now we have all that history, and we've got, again, a sense of shared history or some experiences and whatnot.
Absolutely. Like you said, you try to stick to it as a tool, and you don't let it, it's the same with stuff. It's the same with things that you own. You got to be careful because eventually it can end up owning you.
Yeah. Sure. Now the big difference is, right, or one of the differences is like, yeah, for sure. The getting sucked into it is not unique to social media, but what is unique to it is that there's computer scientists. Like, your hammer is not designed to get you addicted to it.
Right.
Yeah. Sure, your TV kind of is, but your TV is also not interactive, right? So like all of a sudden now we're in this interactive world where I'm a computer geek, right? I listen to these motherfuckers like that. Their goal is to keep us sucked in to using it, right? And so that part is a little bit different, right? So it's like and I think what happens is the scientists are tapping into our natural tendencies to do that, and they're exploiting it to a tremendous effect. So.
Well, and that's why I encourage anybody. I like you said, the beginning of my story was a lot of emotional pain, physical pain, things like that I had to figure out and survive. And there was a lot of therapy, lots of self-help books are on my shelf, along with a lot of psychology. And I love it, honestly. It's hard for me to not respect it on some level, because I do have that very engineer brain of just being like, oh, we're very programmable. We have these natural things that you can actually, and what's sad is that people, when you're feeling something, you are uniquely feeling it. So it's hard for you to think, wow, I'm feeling something that if people that can be very utilized in a nefarious way that, can target me. But it's so, you think like, oh, how could anybody do that?
It's the fucked up part. Like, and this is, these are all just choices that we're making, right? Like it's just as easy to program, maybe not just as easy, but it's not that much more difficult. And it could be just as easy to program the algorithms to help supply us with content that's healthy, that helps us feel better about ourselves, not feel worse about ourselves, that helps us compete in a healthy way, not compete in a toxic way. Like, it doesn't make as much money, perhaps, but I don't know. They haven't really even tested it out yet, right? Like, they're just taking the lazy route, which is like attention means money. And again, the computer doesn't give a shit what.
I'm taking that route. I'm grateful for all of them. I think they're very dedicated fans. But I only have a handful of people that really, because I'm very determined to grow this slow and integral. And I love that grassroots, by ear. It makes me have to meet people, like you said, like go beyond the computer, meet them in person, have an exchange, draw them into a space where we both can exchange on a very integral level. And I want to bring it back, I've had a lot of people be like, why don't you sell ads? Why don't you do TikTok? Why don't you, do these clips? And I'm like, because I do long form conversational podcasts that are about meeting people. Right. If you're attracted to those things, you're not my audience.
Yeah. I can't agree more. I've gone through audiences, sometimes the audience is in millions, sometimes it's in tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands, sometimes it's just thousands. Like, again, as there's like a core group of a couple thousand, and that's all you really need,
Mm-hmm.
And obviously
Yeah.
we've watched a half a dozen other tattoo podcasts or YouTube shows blow up and explode. And then, I think, there is definitely, and it happens in the tattoo world also. It's just another effect of how it happens in the tattoo world. Younger tattooer, 22 years old, all of a sudden, wicked talented, makes $1,500 a day, not mature enough to be able to speak to 100,000 followers.
Correct.
Like,
Correct.
And and I've done the same thing. I have also been in a position of responsibility that was greater than the skill level that I had to communicate at. So I'm not like, throwing stones at glass houses or anything. I acknowledge it because I've been through it.
Yeah.
And and I guess we've watched rock and roll stars. I mean, like all sorts of fame will blow people
Justin
up.
Bieber.
And, however it is. Like, who's that? Is that a golfer?
Right.
But it's tough. Like I said, it's almost, and there's almost no way to teach people ahead of time. One of the themes that came up a couple of times at the gathering last was a bunch of the tattooers were talking about how they used to be assholes or used to be full of themselves. Or again, it's like that 3 year to 6 year mark. Often will a tattooer just all of a sudden they are enabled for the first time in their life, possibly. Right. And it's real easy to let that get to your head and to think it's about you. Right.
Right.
And I'm the one that's doing these tattoos. I'm making $1,500 a day. People are flocking to me. I can go anywhere in the world and actually be busy. But ultimately it's not, right. And again, it's again, the tattoo gathering's not about me. Off the Map wasn't about me. Like Tattoo Now, I mean, it kind of is just because there's other computer geeks, right?
Right.
Like, again, we're really just conduits. And,
right.
It's, I guess ultimately that's one of the things I was hoping that would come out a little bit more. And there might even need to be just a workshop or discussion panel, like I'm not, how to avoid being the asshole that you're probably becoming, or something like that. And again, I don't know, maybe we can't, maybe we all have to go through the learning process of thinking that we're the best thing and then getting our ass kicked and then, coming back and being like, okay, I'm humble enough to keep asking or whatever.
Yeah, I do think there's truth to the humility that needs to happen. I think that's a classic thing. That's I know that it's not a fan thing, but it's like the story of the Tower of Babel. Humanity tried to try to build this huge thing to, be above God. And then, it was leveled and we were parceled out again. I think that's
it's kind of, I love the part that I love about that story. I mean, and I'm definitely, like I said, I read most of the Bible and I've got very strong opinions about a lot of it. For the Tower of Babel, like what I really take away from that is two things. One is if we could just talk to each other, we fucking get the shit down, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like there's a language barrier in between humanity, and then the other part is like, man, if there was a God, wouldn't he want us to all get along and talk in the same language? Like, come on now. But for me,
maybe not in this life, though. You know what I'm saying? Like,
this is the life we got.
Well, I know.
Are we gonna go there?
And well, yeah, but you like video games, so I like to see it as that.
I don't particularly. I used to like video games. I haven't played video games in.
Well, what if we're
my video game.
We're just stuck in a simulation with a certain set of attributes that
that would sound fantastic and awesome, but it's a little bit too complicated for it feels to be natural or to be to be in the natural world. I mean, for me, this is the experience, right? So one of the frustrations that I have with anybody who will try to influence me by using an afterlife or something that happens after death as or almost as anything, it's like, it's this for me is either heaven or hell, depending on the experience that we have. And so
I agree to that.
So to co-opt that, somebody's sense of that for an afterlife, or to try to displace it, again, I really hope on my way out, my last thought will be, I hope I'm wrong about this. I can't wait to be wrong about this. If I'm wrong about one thing, let it be this.
Well, I agree. That's that would be a frustration. I think that all I mean is that I think that for us to keep cultivating hope, there needs to be meaning, and there needs to be that. Now, whether we make it up or not, which we probably do, I do think that it keeps us from being fatalistic.
I read again, as we're talking about, I have a 20-year-old daughter, right? So and she's going into philosophy, and so of the videos I was listening to recently, there was one on optimistic nihilism, right? So nihilism being we are all just
Killian
going to turn
Moon
into
just
dust.
gave me this. I was like,
did he?
Okay,
Yeah, awesome.
Yeah.
And so it's like,
I said, well, at least you're optimistic.
If you, but the thing is, if you acknowledge that, I mean, and I guess again, the scientist in me is like, I just don't know how we can't, acknowledge the fact that the universe is going to run out of fuel, someday, right? And this is all for naught. But to use that again, not to use that to be depressive and to be like whatever, to use it as like that means that this bullshit that's in front of me right now is meaningless, right? Like the drama that's going on the internet about Tattoo Gate or whatever the fuck, like all of that literally is meaningless too, right? And so
well, if that brings you peace, the thing of it is that seems to bring you peace. That seems to allow you to keep going.
Just to be clear, I'm not sure I am an optimist nihilist. I don't, I'm just talking about the concept of if somebody doesn't have meaning to life, what does that mean? And again, like I guess, we could get into, all of the hitching, like, is a false meaning to life that makes your life better, any better than, but if it's a false belief that makes your life better, how does that reconcile, right? I'm not I guess those are all philosophical questions above my pay grade, though.
But you partner with people that I think are very bound to that seeking, at least. I think any artist who denies that is probably lying to themselves. We self-soothe by our craft, and everything is about perpetuating a sense of meaning and hope for us, because otherwise why would we do it? Why would your friend who had cystic fibrosis why did he draw?
So him, that was a long time ago. I don't know. But there's I guess my only reply to that is there's a wide variety of artists, right? They do it for a wide variety of reasons, right? So like I'm always a little bit remiss to say that artists are like this or artists are like that, or artists have a deeper sense of this.
Wise.
Because I know a lot of artists and not all of them are deep, and some artists get into it specifically for the superficiality of it. Which is okay, I guess. It is okay.
Well, yeah and no, because I've met a lot of people, I've talked to a lot of people, and it's as deep as the person will let you dig. Honestly, a lot of people have a lot of depth that they never show and that they won't show. And it's because they are really trying to keep themselves from being seen in that way. And it's very intentional. I've met a lot of people like that. So they put on this very, very fortified facade that if you do meet with them, and I've met with a lot of people, and when you inflict pain on people, it tends to crack them a little bit more than they're comfortable with. You can feel and you can get certain things, and I try to use my powers for good and not evil. But I've found that most people are a lot deeper than what they're really comfortable in sharing, even with podcasting, like, contacting people and then just being like, hey, do you want to be on a podcast? They want to, but then they're like, oh my God, I'm going to be seen. And like, oh, I don't know what to do. And they get really like, and I'm like, dude, don't worry about it. First of all, it's just going to be you and me. It's recorded. If if you want to cut certain things out, I try to keep it raw and honest. But if there's something that comes out that you don't like, we'll cut it out. It's not a big deal. And then, and I'm like, I don't have a huge audience. Who's going to see you?
That is, yeah, for sure. I love that part. It's like the icebreaker. It's I mean, I've helped or not helped, but I've been part of a significant amount of people like hopping on the cameras and doing this stuff. Some of them before they go on the real TV, and then I'm always really nervous ones that come back after. They've been on the Ink Masters like 3 times or whatever, and then they're coming onto our dinky little do-it-yourself podcast shows or whatever. And it's like, but none of us are. I mean, not none of us are like we didn't get into it to become actors.
No.
We got strike, I suppose, if we were. But the point is, like, we are just regular people. No one should be comfortable, in front of the camera, exposing themselves. It's like it's not a natural thing.
No, it's not. It's not. But I like to, and that's why I try to make the show as like very, as much as can be favorable to those things. Like let people understand that like this is the beginning, because of course, apprenticeship and all that stuff is like, you got to start somewhere and you have to get uncomfortable first. And you have to, go into this unknown that, and like you, I've always loved you and your family because, as you said, your wife likes to deal with people who are very still developing and those very fresh, like, 3 months out of the womb. Your daughter loves to teach. Education has always been the forefront. And I do view you as very optimistic. I think I mean, you're about developing systems that I think are to, like you said, amplify. And that has to come from a place of just sincere love and joy and like, wanting to see people be as big and awesome as they can be.
Yeah, so is it? I don't know. Like,
I don't know. You tell me, but that's what I see.
I think, I mean, I'm happy that's the effect, and that is the effect I go for, right? Like my motivation though isn't necessary to like help you become the best person you could be. No offense. I mean, I hope you can be like, but I'm not like, I don't stay up late.
You got to feed your family. I know.
Well, I got to feed, but even that, like, I'm not, I mean, my wife probably wishes I thought about that a little bit more. But for me, it's like, it's just the effect,
it's what you love. It's what you geek out about.
Yeah, that's kind of
you
what
have
I do,
geek
right?
on your hand right now.
Oh yeah, bird geek. I'm not an ornithologist, but I do like birds, and I am a geek. But it's weird because it's like it's I'm looking for the effect, but not because, mostly because I can. I guess I'm here for a very short amount of time, and the skill set that I have, allows me to take a peek at the ingredients, if you will, an artist and where they are and what they're about and where they can go, where they could be. And I could definitely see like, it's almost impossible for me not to be like, you know what you can do? Like, it's just like unsolicited critique and feedback about what I think you could possibly do. Right.
Well, I think that's earnest.
And I can admit that. But again, it's weird. Like it's not like I'm like looking at you. I'm like, I really care about you, Amy, and I can connect all these dots so that you could be the best that you can be. It's really just that. Like, I mean, and again, I do think that, but that's not what my motivation is. My motivation really is, I don't even know. Like I said, mostly it's just, I know I could see the things and I'd like to put them together, and then some people dig it and some people don't. And sometimes it's very difficult and complex to put something together that I'm looking at, and sometimes it's a little bit.
As simpler. An artist, I get it. It's the same thing. It's the same exact thing, and it is a very. I mean, I don't know if I'm on some spectrum, but it is kind of like an emotional disconnect from a place that not a lot of people have, where you're kind of seeing people as more numbers and, points on a screen than you are actually them. And you got to really vacillate between the two when you work, that way. Yeah, for sure. There was a business solopreneur podcast that I was listening to where the fella had worked for, with 300 people or whatever. And then he was down. He's like, I'm not a solopreneur. I have one employee. And the guy's like, look, you had fucking 300 of them. Now you have one. You're a solopreneur. Yeah.
And he was talking about how like he loves people. So like when people like he would say yes to people, right? So when he was in charge, it was not a very good manager because he just have to say yes. And he's like, and to be the business person, you need to think of them as numbers and whatnot. And it's weird because it's like I'm not sure I'm there. I mean, obviously I'm very computery, and my emotional intelligence is, learned very late in life, so there's probably plenty of people that are like, fuck you, you treated me like a number, but I don't know. Like, again, I like, I really dig, where, let's see, like, so Rember is really clear, as a shop owner, how he like treats he meets everybody with where they're at.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And which is crazy because he's got like 20, 25
Yeah.
people in this space. And I did try to, and maybe it came a little bit later, but again, it's like, it's not like, and this is, okay, this is the reason why I don't just say, yeah, I treat people as numbers. Like I'm not fitting anybody into a plan, right? So I'm not like coming out of here and fitting you into a plan, or I'm not fitting, Guy into a plan, or Nick or anybody or Ivana or whatever. I'm not like there's no plan.
No.
So it's not like when I'm looking at somebody, I'm like, oh, I know how I could, fit you and make those numbers into this numbers and make it all work. It really is just more like, the other day Ivana, moved back into to Los Angeles, and she's like,
did she?
Which is, yeah.
Oh, right on.
And
she has the best eyes.
She's great. She's
her
awesome.
eyes are so fucking gorgeous. Sorry.
Yeah. No worries. And so I woke up in the middle of the night thinking she could market to weddings, and she could, like, she's been doing like translating the kids' art into tattoos, so she could like throw parties where the kids, drawing parties for the kids, and then book appointments for the parents.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I can't believe I'm dreaming. I literally woke up at 1:00 in the morning, and I'm like, I have to fucking text so I don't forget these ideas, right? And I don't know. And again, like, so for me, it's like that. She's not a number. I'm not like, there's a real creative energy there that I'm trying to figure out, just how to connect with numbers, how to connect with clients that pay money. But like,
you feel like, to me, and I identify with this a lot, kind of like a creative cheerleader.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, for sure. And again, I like that. Well, cheerleader is almost the right word. Coach is definitely not the right word.
Well, coach suggests a little bit more of a plan.
And it's very athletic. I hate sports, so.
Yeah. Okay, cool. I mean, I don't really, my niece is becoming a cheerleader, and it's been a lot for me to like kind of grapple with that, but I've never been physically fit enough to even go in that space. So I think that's part of my aversion to it. I'm super proud of her and super excited for her, but like the cheerleader vibe is like, really? But I'm happy for her. I mean, she's 8, so it's awesome. And I think that she's incredible that way. And I can't wait to see what she does with it. She's a really good soul. But there's a really.
Sure. But that's obviously people take a peek at our choices, and say the same thing.
I'm a mess.
But it's
I have no right.
Cultural. I guess to tattoos, it's amazing how clearly when we were getting into tattoos, it was counterculture.
Yes.
And now it's like cool culture.
Yes.
And, the shift from that is, I love it. For me, tattooing empowers people to become who they want to be, or often does, or has the ability to. So for me, the ability for, if half of America could actually use tattooing to actualize who they really want to become and become that person, again, I had a story at one point where, tattooing as a cultural Trojan horse, right? So it's like, it's this, anti-establishment art, and really it's a self-empowering art, right? I mean, you put either a symbol on somebody of something that they want to be, then they're looking at it every day and they want to, they're going to become it. And, or an anchor to a memory of the past, or a person of the past, tattooing, it helps people become better people.
Yes.
And so for me, it's like, oh man, it's amazing. It's like everyone thinks that TV is ruining tattooing, right? TV is ruining tattooing. And I'm not saying it's not doing crazy things and some of it's not damaging. But if all of a sudden the mainstream culture of America and the greater world, I'm speaking American here, is now finding it more acceptable to get tattooed. So then all of a sudden they're engaging in this art that can help them become better people and who they want to be. In my science fiction story in my head, I'm like, wow, tattooing is the art that helps bring about world peace or whatever. I don't know, maybe not world peace, but it helps bring about a change and a sea change in people's mentalities about their lives, right? About how the decisions that they make now will affect them now and on their deathbed. They're still going to be looking at, their ex-husband's name on their arm or whatever it might be on their deathbed. But the act of tattooing, it changes people's lives. Give me one second. I need to fill my tea.
Yeah, to go for it. Yeah. Well, you probably can't. I know. Gabe, you're awesome.
The downsides to having headphones is I can't fill up my tea in here.
Well, I was just gonna say, I love that too. I was gonna say that I don't think that I'm. How do I want to phrase this? That is a hope. At the end of the closing panel at Paradise, Fawn was up there, Nick was up there, and the question arose, like, what do you think the future of tattooing is? And I really love the answer you just gave, because if I were to highlight something that I hope tattooing can be, and it's unlike any other art where and I saw it right away because I wanted to do my art for a living, but I saw that in order for me to do that and actually make money, I would have to either parcel myself out to a corporation and be heavily controlled and heavily kitsch and have almost all of my art watered down to a point of where it wasn't even art anymore. It was just like we were talking about, clickbait advertising that's meant to sell people shit. So what I saw in tattooing was, I went to school for illustration, and a lot of kids that went to school for illustration, I think, have found their hearts in tattooing, because what we get to do is take that seed concept from our client and then run with that and create a brand for that person specifically. And while we do it, and this is something that I try to very much so do, I try to educate people about art, because when you do that, you open up the artist in someone else. You open up their creativity, something that has been taken from them through, like you said, like going to certain schools, going to certain programs, like, oh, we gotta live and work and, 9 to 5 it. And like we have to do this soul crushing life that doesn't give us any kind of joy. And there's something that gets amplified and turned up. Like I said, my ability to crack through people through this borderline like torture method, that's what tattooing really is able to, you can either seed in somebody something that's kind of bad and kind of traumatic, which, some tattoo artists, I think, do, whether they mean to or not.
Sure.
Or you can turn them up and you can open up something in them that's really incredible. And I do think that the people who gather at Paradise are those kind of people who aim to be that kind of artist.
Sure. And I think you don't get out to Paradise by accident, right? It's in the middle of fucking nowhere, and it's nerdy, and everyone's like, well, can you actually tattoo anybody in a ski resort? Like, is there anybody going to be there? Or,
right?
No, and like, and all tattooing doesn't have to be about that either, right? There's definitely a place to walk in and get a little, although, you walk in and get a little touristy banger, tattoo though. And this, the same forces are at work, right? If the tattooer is an asshole, then all of a sudden you're thinking that person's an asshole for the rest, of the time that you're looking at that little banger tattoo. If that tattooer is like, on the, again, on a path of helping you enlighten yourself, even though it's just a little banger. They might introduce something or a concept or say something that, again, you're going to remember for the rest. Oh, I remember the first time that I thought about it that way, or whatever it is. And and again, I guess I just waffled back and forth. I'm like, not all tattooing has to be about that life change, except for it is always about it, whether you acknowledge it or not.
Well, I think it's just because you recognize that you're not trying to be an authority in someone's life. You're just trying to give them a few helpful, suggestions. Take it or leave it, man.
Sure. Yeah.
Which I get.
Yeah. I was watching a video, I guess I was on YouTube, and there's a woman, she's tattooing now, I think, or she's apprenticing, and it's all about like the kitschy kind of, YouTube stuff. And there was a pretty famous tattooer lady who was talking about not tattooing people's hands or necks.
Mm-hmm.
And so like the premise of the YouTube is like, are they gatekeeping? They're gatekeeping.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And, the younger woman was doing a great job of explaining. She's like, well, all the older tattooers had to go through shit and this and that, and they would never tattoo necks or hands. And so that's like the old way of doing it. But now no one gives a fuck if you have your hands tattooed. So it's like, they're just old, really. But it was almost like you could, excuse their old ways of, being weird, because when they had to get their neck tattooed, right, they had gotten a lot of, and oh no, I forgot where the point I was going with this, but I was listening to that video. They were talking about gatekeeping and,
we were just talking about like, I think how people get to paradise, what their interactions with the public is, and how to open up people. And I think you were getting to the point of like, our professional responsibility, and the fact that you, like you said, you're just trying to not be an authority. You're just trying to give people suggestions about,
So right. So then that made me think of when they were talking about not getting your hands tattooed or whatever. Mm-hmm. It was probably 15 years. I don't know, whatever. It was 2009, I think. And because there was a particular tattooer, and she was, a client had come in and wanted a tattoo on their hand or their neck or something, and the tattooer was giving them a lecture about, jobs and this or that. And I'm just like, they're a fucking scientist. They came in, they said they're a scientist you're like a 23-year-old tattooer who barely could keep their own shit together. Like, I know what happens when you walk out of the store and you're a wreck. And you're trying to give like advice to a 45-year-old scientist.
Yeah.
So yeah, like, but
you definitely know, you need to know your crowd.
That tattooer still does tattoos on people that they're going to remember for the rest of their life. Right. And so it's, and this is where I was going before. It's like, even though we get the responsibility, it's not like anybody's like, oh, here's the responsibility and the handbook on how to fucking use it appropriately.
Correct.
And again, even if, if you're 22 years old, even if you read the book, you're not necessarily going to understand it because you're only 22. Right. And it's really tremendous, the amount of energy that tattooing. I mean, for me, it's one of the most beautiful things. It's like, again, the barrier to entry is so low, and the heights that you could reach are,
I mean, endless.
Endless. I mean, there's a limit.
Endless.
There's a natural limit. I wanted to say endless or limitless. There's a natural limit. Like, you can't make more. You can't be, more famous than the most famous person in the world, right? But if you want to be, you could be. Tattooing really is, and so that, again, that enabling nature of tattooing, that and it's we talked about it before. The power that enables the client to become who they want to be in mass allows the tattooers to become exactly who they want to be.
Yes.
And, if you want to be a raging fucking maniac asshole, you can. You might not make $2,000 a day. You might only make $1,000. You might not be booked out a year. You might only be booked out 6 months. But if you're talented, you can be, right? Yeah. And so the real trick, not the trick, but the people that the hardest thing that I found is like people. Yeah, I mean, and it's just like this, like you have to figure out who you are and get all that toxic shit out of you before you scale yourself, or before you get scaled. And again, it's part of, if you don't get it out before you scale. And again, like I would think about this with my tattoo shop. I'd probably gotten it about 70-80% right. And when I was at 80% right, I'm like, good enough for me. I'm a fucking B+ student. Let's go for it. But
Yeah.
like when I scaled it, all of a sudden I had, when I was up, when I went up 200, 300, 400%, that 10% or 15% that wasn't right got scaled
Scale
too.
too.
Right? Like, oh shit, what was, if I had one complaint out of 10, who gives a fuck? One complaint out of 10. We're the best tattoo shop, not the best tattoo shop in the world. We're one of the best tattoo shops in the world. 1 out of 10, who gives a fuck? All of a sudden there's 1,000 people and there's 100 complaints. It's
Yep.
like, oh shit.
Shit.
Wait a minute. Now I've got 100 people talking to each other,
Yes. And that amplifies really quickly.
But it was like, but it's only 10%. It's not, and then the same thing will happen. Yeah, sorry.
Oh no! Again, it's your show, but I was just gonna intercede in that. Like, so I grew up in a small business family, and one of the things that I did first before I cut hair for a living, and then ultimately tattooed, was I ran the front end of my dad's salon, and he sent me to seminars to be a good front end person.
Awesome.
One of the things I know, right? It's amazing. I mean, there's seminars for everything, but one of the things that you learn was that that part is so integral, because when people leave and they're dissatisfied, that is like a wildfire that will catch to so many more people than you think, because people, when they're satisfied, very rarely go out of their way to talk about it. They'll just come back. But the problem is, when they're not satisfied, they won't come back, and they'll tell endless people, at least 10 people, about how dissatisfied. And now that we have the internet where you can go,
amazing,
and just have that be rampant. And you can have campaigns of people who, like you said, about the anonymous ratings and reviews. I almost feel like you said about the if we use these tools to the benefit of human society, I think one of the things that I would suggest is, like, you don't get to leave a 1 or 2 star review without writing, or 1 or 2 star rating without writing a review.
Yeah. For me, and I'm I'm 49, almost 50. Right. So the other day I'm walking down the bike path and I fucking got a pre-roll from the dispensary, and I'm spark it up, and I fucking, all of a sudden I look, and the whole fucking thing falls right out onto the fucking sidewalk. And I knew it was my fault, because I knew this had, I bought the fucking pre-roll from a dispensary. I knew it wasn't the best quality thing that I could have done or whatever.
You were eager.
But I was on my walk. I wanted to, I immediately was like, I'm going to get on the fucking Facebook and be like, these motherfuckers sold me a, and then I'm like, wait. You're supposed to talk to the person you have a problem with first.
Yeah.
And it was like, I can't believe I fell for it. And I got my ass kicked because people didn't follow those rules, right?
Yeah.
And it was like, even that's me. That's I wanted to go straight to the internet. I wanted to go straight and bitch about it to all my friends and family, so that they could know that fucking dispensary sold a bad fucking pre-roll. And I was like, right? No, that is exactly the wrong thing to do. That's not like, you're supposed to go to the store and be like, can you please replace my faulty product? And that's so simple, right? But now, how did we lose that? Or how did I lose that? I mean, we lost, there's a spot that
Okay, that wraps part 1. I know, it was just getting good. But as you can tell, whatever you gain, just understand that the higher you go, the farther you can fall. And Gabe is really, he's such a good person to reference for all of this, because he's been through most of it. And I honestly think that, I don't know, just such a good guy at the end of all of that. Even still, a lot of stuff happened to him. And I'm mad for him in a lot of ways, because but I guess when it comes down to everything, what's supposed to happen happens, and it's all meant for us to learn from and grow from. And I guess that's the take home. And I know that that's got to be the take home that you really couch on by the end of the day, when you've risen that high. I mean, at least you've felt a lot, and you've experienced a lot in such a short amount of time. And that's something that Gabe can really really say for himself. I'm just so grateful that he's a friend of mine, and he's always there to really influence me, and he's always given me so much access to awesomeness. He surrounds himself with awesomeness. So thank you, Gabe, for this part 1. Next week we'll have part 2. Please join us back because Gabe has more to share. We're going to get into a lot of fun AI talk, which should be pretty cool. Thank you, listeners. I really appreciate your patience. This podcast is coming out late, so I really thank you for hanging in there and waiting for me to get my hardware issues under control. God bless you and have a powerful week.
Thanks for listening. You can find the Apprenticeship Diaries on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. Our IG is _apprenticeship_diaries. If you would like to offer constructive criticism or an interview, drop us an email at theapprenticeshipdiaries@gmail.com. We look forward to hearing from our listeners.